Hey everyone, Farmington Mayor Nate Duckett here. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Mayor's Table. Today's episode is going to be a retrospect of 2019 and then looking at the prospects for the new decade. Hey everyone, Farmington Mayor here with my guest today, City Manager Rob Mays with the City of Farmington. Rob, thanks for joining us for this Mayor's Table.
It's always an honor to be here with you.
We are downtown at the Studio Bake Shop located at Artifacts, 302 East Main Street. We're going to be doing the majority of our Mayor's Tables during the construction project, the revitalization of our downtown area. We're going to be doing our Mayor's Tables here at the different businesses, promoting this area and reminding people to make sure that they continue to shop and come to their favorite places here in the downtown area. Really important for the business owners that we're supporting them through this.
Yeah, it's been great to hear a lot of people, just friends, acquaintances, conversations I've had. People telling me they're making a special effort to get down here during the construction. If you're going out to eat anyway, this is a good time to remember our downtown businesses. It's really not as bad as it sounds to get into them. You can either park, either side of downtown and easy access up the side roads into the sidewalks. So we appreciate people making a really great effort to come down and support our businesses.
In the last Mayor's Table, we actually filmed it at the HQ at 119 West Main Street and gave some information for folks just tuning into the city's website, understanding which part of the project we're in and how to best access their favorite places. So we just, again, come out and make sure you're supporting the businesses, shop local. It's really important during this time. But Rob, we're going to talk today about kind of the 2019 retrospect and then looking at 2020 and beyond for the city of Farmington. There was a lot that happened in 2019, and of course moving into 2020, it's already February. Session's already happening right now. We're a month into this project essentially in the downtown area. A lot of things are already moving very quickly.
They are.
But it's good for folks to know kind of what did we do last year. And when we were prepping for this show, we talked a little bit about some of the big projects, the fun projects we're doing, but I wanted to really edge first in on the nuts and bolts of what city government does for the community. And when we talk about roads, we talk about water and electric and police and fire and those things. Give us an idea. People have seen a lot of road work. When we're talking about streets and water and sewer lines, God, that was a big project in 2019.
Yeah, we tend to talk a lot about the special projects that get a lot of attention, but it's important not to forget, as you put it, the real nuts and bolts of government. Our responsibility is to maintain a healthy and safe infrastructure, whether it be public safety, a lot of good developments of public safety this year, and then just the things that we take for granted, that the electricity stays on, the water and wastewater lines, street paving, all those things. So we have always been very proactive in investing in our infrastructure. We call it the R&R fee. As you know, it's in our bill, and it's a lot of money. But every penny of that goes right back on our infrastructure, and so we probably this year replaced 10 to maybe 12 to 15 miles of water lines, 12 to 15 miles of sewer lines, and upgraded those with brand new lines, and that's a lot to accomplish in a year. But the whole system is really on a schedule to be sure we keep the system up and running. And we don't want to take those things for granted, even though most of the time we don't even see those things.
Well, it's interesting too, in 2014, I believe there was a presentation given to council that was 80 plus miles of water and wastewater or water and sewer lines that were over 50 or 60 years old, and they were failing at a very high rate. Yep. And so you're at a point, I know a lot of things that we do, infrastructure, well, not really infrastructure, but assets of the city, some of those things we wait until they break before we replace them. I mean, there's just no reason not to get every single dollar that we can out of them. But when it comes to water lines and sewer lines, it costs a lot more when a line breaks, and then because it will break there and then it breaks further down the line. It's much more efficient for us to replace them and take away that additional cost in the end.
Yeah, our Public Works Department has a very robust process by which they evaluate and prioritize lines. Sometimes it's by age, but sometimes you have a relatively old line that for some reason isn't leaking, and so you really just prioritize it to be the most cost effective for our citizens.
I think people would be interested to know, especially when it comes to the projects that occurred on San Juan Boulevard, on Butler, where it was kind of a long-term project to get all the connections into those lines to the fire hydrants and those things on the sidewalks. those areas that have been worked on, we will be repaving completely. Butler, we will be repaving completely Salem Boulevard, correct?
There's a lot of places, even as today, they're temporary winter patches. Along 30th Street, there's quite a bit. So when you see things that look like they're not paved quite right, that's because they're winter patched and the new paving will go on this spring.
And people need to know too, there is a schedule, and in all circumstances, the city is trying to save as much money as possible and not paving something, completely paving it, because there's a difference between doing a little overlay or doing the slurry seal versus actually putting down new pavement. These projects are trying to work into a schedule so that you're not having to put down new pavement and then dig again and come back in later on to fix something. That is certainly not anything we're trying to do.
No, that's right.
So
it's complicated because you've got infrastructure under the roads, and you've got to maintain traffic, and so those priorities are always a part of things. So sometimes work is not done in a manner that you might think at face value that it ought to be done, or it's counterintuitive, but there's a lot of considerations that go into it, and cost is a big one.
Right. Well, looking at paving particularly, what do we think we spent 2019? Over $9 million roughly for paving?
I'd say somewhere between $8 and $10 million on paving. A lot of pavement last year, as you recall, when the council put in a new 8th increment that was dedicated strictly to road maintenance. Every penny of that is going into the paving. We actually did a bond on a part of that money so we could get caught up on a lot of paving. So paving's a strong priority. I know it never seems like it's as good or as much as done as we'd like, but I think if you compare us to most places, you'll find we're in pretty good shape. The caveat to that might be that, I know if you're like me, when we do get complaints from citizens, many times it's on a state highway, yes. State highways that are either in the city or in the vicinity of the city that really we don't have any jurisdiction over. Murray Drive
Drive's a great example.
The chief example of that.
Yeah, that's our truck bypass. And obviously, if you live on the south side of town and you're traveling on that road every single day, you're looking at the city going, how come you guys don't care about this road? You're only taking care of roads in these other areas. But that is a state highway. We are pushing the Department of Transportation all the time to make sure that this is going to be done. I believe they will tie it into the 64 project. But as we look at the downtown project specifically, the importance of that Murray bypass is that we need those big semi-trucks. Well, they're going to have to, really. Those big semi-trucks are going to have to take the truck bypass to get around because they won't be able to really easily maneuver through the downtown area. So I think it's going to be important to get that done.
Yeah.
Other good things that happened in 2019, obviously the cities were focused on kind of what the vision and who we are as a community, diversifying outside of the oil and gas industry, the energy industry, and so some things that happened this past year. Bistye Bay was a big project that we did. This next summer we have the 2 big slides that have now been put up, so we'll get to do a second grand opening here in just a few months for Bistye Bay.
Just looking at some statistics this morning, that staff told me that there was only 2 days of all last summer that we did not make our 400 person per day projection that was put into the kind of business pro forma, and that's without the slides. So by all realistic measurements, that project has been overwhelmingly successful, and the public is responding and using it. So imagine this next summer when we have the slides up.
Sure. Lake Farmington, there's going to be, we're updating the ordinance that allows for swimming to occur in other places on the lake. I think that's going to be a big deal. We're continuing to find ways to improve the beach. We added the shade structures to the beach, as well as the campground.
And now the Parks Department is working with the Parks Commission and to bring forward some strategic ideas for potentially even as soon as this summer to put in a Whibbit Park, kind of a separate area out where we really bring in a whole lot more of those Whibbits where people can go out and enjoy.
And the
Whibbits, kind
of
an attraction.
The Whibbits, for people to know, are the water feature playground, essentially. The kids can climb on and jump off of. And
we're kind of taking that initial concept and potentially taking it to a whole new level that it becomes a regional attraction in addition to the beach.
Sure. We are just now completing, and it's completed actually probably as we talk, is the aquatic center, putting back in the kids slide at the aquatic center. That, of course, it lived its complete and total life.
It did.
And so now we've got that back in play.
Well, that's a great point. When we talk about investments in outdoor recreation and the Community Transformation and Economic Diversification Fund, there are things that have quite a few of our facilities and features here have reached their end of life and need to be invested in. That slide was like $360,000, and it's been closed for, man, maybe longer,
Right.
maybe 6 months to a year. So within the next week or so, that if it's not already open, that slide should be open any day now.
Trying to get people to those destination points where we want to push out the outdoor recreation or celebrate the recreation that we have here. The wayfinding signs allowed us to kind of do that. It was kind of a way to say, hey, check out what we have going on here in the city of Farmington. And I think it was probably better for the people who lived here as much as it was for anybody coming in, because it brings all those things to top of mind.
Yep.
So if somebody asks you, what is there to do? Well, now you can say, well, check this out.
Yeah, we've had so much feedback from locals that said, I just didn't realize we had that, or I'm just so proud to see it shown off in such a way. Yeah.
With those signs, and as we progressed through 2019, we also added some additional bike lanes, quite a few. I mean, a dozen plus miles of bike lanes. I drove one the other day coming down from Pinion Hills Boulevard down Dustin all the way to downtown. And the point of those were to make those north-south connections that you could do on a bike safely, not having to be on the sidewalk or have a little bit of wiggle room with the vehicles that are on the roadway. Some of those things, of course, when you hit Main Street, there's going to be points in there where maybe you don't see a whole lot of bikers in that area, but I believe that that's going to grow. Yeah. I can tell you that my wife, who goes to work at 6:30 in the morning at the hospital, she has told me repeatedly that she sees people on their bikes on Main Street going to work. So we know that it exists. It may not be existing at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but again, these are future plays.
That's right.
We're trying to play our hands so that we're not just benefiting today, we're benefiting Farmington 10, 20 years from now. And all of the means of being multimodal are a component of that.
Yeah, and biking is huge, and we received a lot of input. The number one area in a survey that we did a couple of years ago on Parks and Recreation were more bike trails, more paved bike trails, and more access. So it's a huge area, and again, it's a part of this transformation. If we're really going to be an outdoor recreation capital, we need to be more aware of the importance of bike trails.
I would like to say, ideally, in my mind, it would be great to have those bike trails that weren't on the roadways, but for the cost of us just using paint, we're able to accomplish some of those things, and now we'll continue to chip away at what the broader picture is, I think, in the long run. Just talking about river trail connections, of course, the river is one of the assets in the community that we believe is really important for future development for businesses, entrepreneurs, and for tourism, retirement living, for quality of life. So I'm happy to see that project finally kick off.
Well, it's been, as you say, lots of work, but in this next year, I'm happy to say that I'm very confident we'll finally see the long dream of having that trail connected from the far west side of the community out among the Waters Trail, all the way through down Main Street, along Middle Fork, all the way out to the extension of Pinion Hills Bridge. That'll be connected about 8 miles of uninterrupted trail. And then there's the vision that's even to go beyond that. The next big, hairy, audacious idea is to take the old railroad right-of-way that's been kept intact and eventually connect that trail all the way to Aztec.
Right.
And we've got a working group working right now with the county and Aztec, starting to really look at that closely and see if we can bring that dream. And that would potentially likely be a paved bike trail, which again would add a whole nother dimension of attraction and quality of life for our folks. Another big, exciting potential project that's on the horizon, and it's not just a pipe dream at this point, it's one that the council will be taking a serious look at in the months ahead related to the river, is really enhancing our water features, putting in potentially up to 5 water features that allow this new, where you surf in the river, kayaking, tubing, and so some really exciting new, probably 5 major. You see it up in Pagosa, Denver, other places. Yeah. And what we really love about that is if the city builds the infrastructure, we would hope to see in our outdoor economic development and diversification strategy, hopefully the private sector then would spring up all around that infrastructure, private businesses that are supported by that infrastructure, from rentals to all the things that go with that.
Well, it ties into with the RFQs that we went out for. for zip lining at Farmington Lake, the campground, the cabins at Farmington Lake, and also the development of the west side of the museum.
Yep. Yeah, those are all very feasible and projects that we think are really what we're looking at as kind of an enterprise project that with very little initial investment by the city, these are some businesses that in public-private partnerships have the potential to pay for themselves or very closely pay for themselves.
A lot of things happened in 2019. We would be here actually probably for another hour talking about in depth some of the things that happened. Just to kind of come through bringing these there, we created the alternative response unit for downtown with our firefighters, police officers, and the park ranger division to help us provide security and really customer service to some degree in our parks and in the downtown area. We obviously cleaned up the Miller and Pinion corner there in a very dangerous structure that was becoming a real issue for the people obviously in that neighborhood, but the firefighters who were having to deal with the constant calls out there. We moved the winter shelter, the emergency shelter, to the Ojo Court complex, where now we've kind of got it strategically aligned with our mission to help people get off the streets and get back into society. Airport improvements, a big one this past year.
That's a huge one.
I mean, our vision is to have commercial service return to Farmington this summer.
Yeah, so that's one that's both an accomplishment of 2019 and a horizon goal for 20. The infrastructure to upgrade our airport is pretty much complete. It'll be finished early spring, and we're certainly hoping by summer or fall that we potentially bring back jet service to our community.
I think that'd be a big deal. Moving into 2020, we've got some additional kind of funds that we'd set aside for the feasibility of an all-abilities park here in this community. Very cool concept, something that council's very attuned to and see it as an opportunity to bring people in, but provide a quality of life component that you can't find anywhere around here.
That's right. We're still very hopeful and in discussions with the Farmington Municipal Schools about a partnership there where that potentially would be built on the site of the old Tibbetts Middle School, contributed by the schools. Then the city, in partnership with various private entities and grants, would construct the All Abilities Park.
You know, also last year we contributed funds for the Teen Center at the Boys and Girls Club. Just another one of those partnerships that we have, and we're looking at pickleball courts at Brookside Park to go along with the Bisti Bay amenity there. But we're in the middle of a comprehensive plan that's being updated. The last one was done in 2005,
2012.
2012, sorry. Yeah. Museum's going through a strategic plan, I'm sorry.
You know, it's just related to that. You know, when you go back and look at that plan, you know, there's so many things in that plan that we're actually accomplishing. The downtown project is one of those. That was a central focal point of the community's comprehensive plan in 2012. That by 2022, that the downtown would be revitalized into exactly what we're doing. And so we've taken seriously our comp plan, and in spite of very difficult economic conditions over the last 10 years, we've accomplished many of the things that the community set out to accomplish in 2012.
2020 is going to be a big year. I don't think there's any bigger issue on our plate right now than the San Juan Generating Station and our continued path forward to retrofit that plant with carbon capture technology with Enchant Energy. I'll be traveling to Washington, D.C. next week to continue those discussions. Where are we at right now in regards to the plan itself and the plan moving forward?
Yeah, well, you know, it's really interesting. You think in terms of economic development, we've always kind of postured in our defensive mode and in our offense mode. And what started in this plan is maybe a very, very low expectations that maybe we could extend the life of this plant for a few years, has now grown into a vision so much beyond that. You're right, in the last year, this thing has gone from maybe a pipe dream or a hope of short-term to now a long-term of saving not only the 1,600 jobs that are direct and indirect that exist now, the potential to create a couple hundred new jobs, but really becoming this focal point of environmental stewardship through the proliferation of carbon sequestration technology in partnership with New Mexico Tech, the labs, San Juan College, that now our vision is not just to save those jobs, but that Farmington would become focal point globally where people were coming from all over the world to be trained in this technology that's vital for our planet.
And again, to reiterate for folks who think that Farmington's somehow over their head by being engaged in this project, it's important to remember we've not extended our liabilities in that plant. When it comes to reclamation, we've had a fund in place since we first took ownership that we've been saving money up for the day when that reclamation would need to be done. We also have a 20% discount on our power rates. It's a part of our contract with Enchant Energy. We're not going to be involved initially into selling the CO2 in the pipeline, which is what Enchant had initially, their big idea was in purchasing this. But there's also all the other components that they're interested in doing and utilizing that power for. It's important to know, I mean, we're not over our heads. We're actually, and if this is successful, we save $117 million roughly between making sure that our assets that are in there are going to get depreciated to the full extent and not having to build additional generation for our customers. So those are two big things. I think when you play it out that way, and we use the win-win-win scenario, but it quite literally is. It's a win for the community, it's a win for jobs, it's a win for CCSD, and it's going to be a win for the environment as well.
Well, the momentum has just grown to such an exciting place now. Not only the recent independent study put out by the Los Alamos Labs that say this project is technologically viable. It's pretty hard to ridicule the Los Alamos National Labs and say that they don't know what they're talking about in New Mexico. Now global partners, and not only is Enchant Energy our prime partner in partnership with Mitsubishi, Sargent and Lundy, and other announcements forthcoming where we see these really global companies joining into this partnership. We really believe it's going to happen. And I would just remind viewers that we've done a couple episodes of the Mayor's Table on this that they could look up, and then also on enchantenergy.org. Everything is there with all the information anybody could hope to.
Great resource on that website and explaining what carbon capture is and how it's already in play and working right now in other places. So 2020 is going to be a big year, and there's many more opportunities for us to sit down and talk as we look at as this year goes on. Outdoor recreation is going to be a big component of that. The Outdoor Economics Conference will be here at the beginning of October, bringing 400 to 500 people to Farmington, many of which this will be their first time coming to our community. We're looking at doing a complete revamping of the Road Apple Rally and providing a kind of a new face to that, and we've got pieces in play to make that an amazing weekend of bike racing.
Yep.
And tying into the BLM's projects as well. Anasazi Bike Park is going to have additional trails as a part of it. They're planning a pump track. They're going to be adding trails and trailheads and signs and things this year all throughout that system. So a lot of things for people to be engaged in, excited about, and looking forward for opportunities past 2020 into 21, 22.
Yep.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I would say one of the very important to remind people of is the census. I believe it begins in April.
Very important.
How important it is that people are counted. We want to remind folks that if they're working somewhere else in the country, that they need to register here where their home address is, and really be sure we get a full count, because the consequences to federal funding and statewide are huge. It's critical for us as a county and a community to get a full count in our census.
Absolutely. Good reminder. Well, anything else, Rob?
No, I think that's it. Maybe you'll have me back sometime. We can talk more about the things on the horizon for 2020
and 2021
and beyond.
We got 4 more years together, Rob.
Yeah,
it's going to be an exciting 4 years. So, thank you for tuning in today to the Mayor's Table. If you have questions, concerns, ideas for episodes, things that you would like to share with us, never hesitate to contact me at nduckett@fmtn.org. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time right here on the Mayor's Table.